You've just accessed Hardware is Forever, your source for the expert insights, ideas, and innovations you need to do more in the electronics manufacturing industry. From optimization to operations, join us as we put the pieces together for a better approach to manufacturing. Let's go.
This is Hardware is Forever. I'm Chris Bentliff. Jay Patel is the CEO at Amtech. And today, Jay and I have a guest, which is always a highlight for us when we get to do this kind of thing. Everett Frank is from SnapChip, snapchip.ai, which is all of the buzzwords at once. And I love it. And I can't wait to understand more about what you're doing, Everett, and how it's going. And so welcome. And I guess let's start with just describe snapchip.ai to us a little bit. Tell us a little bit about what it is, what it does, why it's here.
Yeah, snapchip.ai has really kind of evolved into more of a back end than a front end. We do still keep some front end stuff up there. But it, generally speaking, it provides information about electronic components directed towards the procurement side, more supporting the buy side.
Interesting. So, Jay, what is a use case from your standpoint? Like when you are connecting with that sort of service delivery, where does it come in? You're kind of, in my mind, the prototype customer of something like that, yeah?
Yeah, I think, that's where we kind of connected. I don't even remember how we met. How did we meet?
Yeah, I think we did meet regarding SnapChip, and we have really kind of evolved more to, as I say, to back-end services.
Correct.
And so we point back at SnapChip a little bit differently. And as we go through, I'll probably explain a little bit more how that evolved, because it's in an interesting way. It's kind of tracking the evolution of AI and how it's being adopted.
So I think one thing in electronics is, I always say this, and it take it for what it's worth, but like electronics is not hard in the sense of, when we look at machining or we look at welding or, even construction, that's hard work. That's a lot of hard work. Electronics is not hard work, but it is very detail-oriented work.
Yeah.
There is so much data that goes into part selection, supply chain, cross-references, vendor selection. I mean, there's just so much data that goes into it. And one piece of data can change your assembly for one single part from conforming to non-conforming. Oh. And so what really the race is in electronics, especially, is how can we create a dynamic environment that is not fixed? Because before, the way that you handle all of the different options is by locking things down and not changing things and becoming very rigid. So when there's a lot of these diversity of options, we don't go down the wrong path. Well, that's great, but I think one thing that really taught us, especially in the last, we had the initial issue with the resistors and capacitors, and then after that we had the semiconductor issue, is that the rigidity does not help us sometimes. End of lives are changing, CO, country of origins, are changing, which affects cost directly. So I think, that's where services like what Everett provides really comes into play for us, and that's where we start consuming it. And we'll talk about a use case that we use his products on right now, just as an example.
Everett, where is that kind of? Tell me about the genesis of SnapChip. Like as Jay is describing a problem, did you sort of identify this needs a solution? Let me build a business around it, or kind of what's your roadmap there? What's your history?
Yeah, that's a good question. So my history is I started out in electronic distribution, and I was, 15 years in electronic distribution at a senior level. We were sold to Arrow, and I jumped into contract manufacturing and then spent 20 years in contract manufacturing. And I've done M&A. I've worked for big companies, little companies, so very experienced in contract manufacturing. When I saw ChatGPT hit the scene, I was like, that's the most transformative thing I've ever seen. And that's unbelievable. So I started looking into what can be done. And the first thing you kind of know, particularly going back then, is it lacks context. It lacks the relevant information. So can we bring in the relevant information? And that's where we started to evolve SnapChip, that we could use AI by feeding it the relevant component information and then forming that into things that people need, how to take buy actions, how to find the best price, how to do a bomb script. All that could be automated in a single platform.
So the as you said, the trajectory has kind of matched that of Gen AI, of ChatGPT, which it was only November of 2023 when, all of our eyes sort of suddenly jumped awake. How has I want to talk about the product and how it has iterated, but how has your vision for the company iterated as AI continues to get like breathtakingly changing every other day? How do you keep up with that, or how do you stay on task or on target, or how do you iterate and move comfortably with those realities sort of surrounding you?
I'm not sure if there's a clean answer to that. I'm going to describe it this way. I think that Google, I think it comes down to the idea of a single prompt interface so Google was the first example. They introduced a single prompt interface, and what it answered is, how do I find something, right? So they introduced an indexing algorithm that allowed you to find things on the internet in just a single prompt, right? And so that was the first single prompt interface in a way. ChatGPT introduces a single prompt interface that lets you answer the question, what do I want to know? And now it's not what do I want to find, it's what do I want to know? And that's what ChatGPT is doing in a single prompt interface. The next stage and the glimpses are being introduced almost weekly. Just in the past couple of weeks, they've introduced things that are leading this way. The next evolution of the single prompt interface is, what do you want to do? And it will actually now go do things. But we're really still in that mode where everyone's trying to learn, how do I use a single prompt interface to answer the question, what do I want to know? And so the world is currently stuck right there. And what we already knew, I guess, is that the electronics industry is just famous for leading from the rear. We're the last to adopt any technology. And so we currently are not at a place where we even understand how to use ChatGPT or any kind of single prompt interface to answer the question, what do I want to know? Right? It's not in our industry right now. And so that's the next thing, I think, in our industry. And another thing I've learned in all this is that marketing is hard.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, and it's astonishing how naive I was on this, because I really did think that if I put something out here and it gives this single prompt interface so you can just answer all these questions, that people would just go, that's it, that's amazing, right? Wrong. You need to go market software. And so that's where that was kind of a main thing that drove us to realize, number one, we introduced SnapChip as a single prompt interface, and the world's not there. And so we really, and then we realized you got to market stuff. Well, I don't have the budget to convince the electronics world to use a single prompt interface. So really, we think our best role is as a back-end provider, that we will enable these things as they go. We'll provide microservices, if you will, that support that evolution. Was that responsive to your question?
Yeah, that was great. What's a Jay, you talked about kind of a use case. What's an example of that? So when I fire up SnapChip, it's because I need help with, what am I uniquely experiencing with that?
So Everett, if it's okay, if I wanted to share about BombSense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, when all this stuff was happening with all the tariffs, and I think a little bit more complexity that happened, we've been dealing with tariffs almost a decade now, maybe 9 years now. We've been dealing with maybe around, let's just say around there, 1.5 terms, presidential terms, we've been dealing with it. And I think, one thing that I learned is like managing tariff and the tariff data was very, very difficult. And, since the beginning, we've been trying to look for something that gives us, we can enter the manufacturer part numbers and the manufacturers, and it gives us the country of origin and the HTS codes and the tariffs, you know, applied to it. And I'll tell you, we looked for a lot of different options out there, you know, using the traditional ones that are there, using, you know, a lot of the distributors' APIs, which are available, but nothing could bring it together. And then I don't know how we ended up doing it. I may have just asked, or I just kept on asking Everett, and Everett finally said, "Yeah, we got it." I don't know if he said finally, but he probably had it. I finally asked, and we have it, and he gave me the API endpoints, and then we were able to spin up a application called bombsense.com, which is cool. I mean, it's a nice URL, has a nice ring to it, where customers can, and we can upload the bomb, proactively identify tariff exposure, develop our AML, so then we can reduce tariff exposure and reduce risk in the overall supply chain, and provide that as, you know, as a tool to our customers. And I think, you know, without backend APIs like what Everett provides, that's not available to the world. And I think this is just, and I'm probably just one of many use cases that use the backend, but that's just an example of what kind of stuff can be done if this data and this API is used properly.
That's really interesting. Is that a typical use case, Everett, or are you surprised by the different things that are coming on board, or different ways people are using, especially as you're kind of moving into that back end kind of way? Are you finding yourself in the thing about AI moving so quickly, as you've sort of alluded to, what we thought we were doing turns out to not be the thing that we are doing, because whatever people's experiences or expectations or whatever. So is that evolving? Are you finding that other companies are using SnapChip intelligence and data and technology in unique ways, in different ways than you expected?
Yeah, I think that's right. Really the biggest thing that we provide as a backend service right now is cross-referencing services, where we provide comprehensive, accurate cross-references, and that's the main backend service that we're providing right now. You know, that's a problem that is, you know, decades old, and no one's ever solved. And we really have solved it. And absolutely, I certainly would not know how to solve it without AI, contributing, I guess I would say, at certain really important points in the process of developing cross references. It's completely enabled by AI. So now we figured out how to do that, and that's probably the main interest, I guess I would say right now, is people accessing our cross references via API.
Do you find, I don't know, has your own, as a leader, as an innovator, as an entrepreneur, has your skill sets had to quickly, I mean, Jay and I talk about this a lot. None of us were prompt engineering 3 years ago. And now, if you're not at least rudimentary figuring out how to do this stuff, you're starting to slip behind. Are you having to change the way you think about your own skill sets, or the way that you're bringing a team around you, or the things that you're doing in dramatic fashion as quickly as the rest of us?
Yeah, in the sense that you might wipe everything off your desk and start over. Yeah,
that's every afternoon.
You know, when I started, I had done some software, and I'd done some things, particularly database programming, that kind of thing, right? But ChatGPT taught me how to install Python on my system, right? So that's where I started, right? So yeah, I mean, I had to learn everything, and I think I would still say I know a tiny fraction of what's actually necessary to know. You know, bringing a software product to market is just much more involved than I had really any idea. It was just completely naive about what was necessary. So yeah.
Has that been the hardest part of the whole kind of journey for you, do you think, is just sort of that learning curve, or even the naivety, or what's been the most challenging for you as you've kind of gotten off the ground?
Yeah, you know, and it's kind of hard for me to, like thinking about that word hardest. I'm enormously entertained by it all. You know what I mean? I think it's very interesting. I don't wake up in the morning and go, oh, this is going to be really hard.
Right.
You know, I wake up in the morning and I think this is really fascinating. You know, how can I solve that? How can I do that? And that you can use tools like ChatGPT or the other tools. There's Cursor, there's Windsurf, all these others that you can answer that question. What do I want to know? Right. And what I want to know is, how do I do this? How do I do that? How do I blah, blah, blah? It's, and the way it's evolving is unbelievable. And, I'm going to say, I still think 90% of the people that I say, hey, do you use ChatGPT? And the answer is effectively no. They'll say, oh, yeah, I looked up a recipe the other day, or something like that. But the adoption, the understanding, honestly, it astonishes me. Are you guys seeing anything different? Or do I just have a weird friend set?
No, I see that too, Jay. What do you see though, Jay? You are kind of I don't know, but you're surrounded by like minds, and especially, do you agree with what Everett's saying about how, look, in electronics, we are the last of the party? Do you see that, or are you, because you're naturally curious about this stuff, a little bit at the forefront?
Yeah, I think, whenever an industry or anything gets really, really large, change is a little bit harder because there's so much more risk at play. 1% of $100 is significantly less than 1% of $1 million.
Mm.
So people get a little bit more risk adverse when growing. And I think that's where people, rightfully so, go a little bit slow. I internally, I say, do not buy an AI tool because in 3 months it will be obsolete. Like, I say that, and I have been proven right over and over again. Just recently, OpenAI just launched a product that's going to take a lot of these workflow AI based engines and just make it part of OpenAI standard model now. So I feel like things are changing fast. What Everett kind of said is, like, I think you need to realize how incapable you are, and or how much you don't know, and then also understand that the knowledge and expertise of all of humanity is at your fingertips, and then go forward with that confidence that you can do it. And I don't think anybody has stopped to think about that. I think we all get into a thing about, just doing your jobs and making sure the status quo is there and hit your margins, and that's it. I think one thing that people don't recognize this era as is it's a leapfrog moment if you choose for it to be a leapfrog moment. If you do not, then it's not going to be a leapfrog moment. One thing I can say is Everett and I spar on AI use case implementations all the time. He's like, I implemented this. When I say I implemented this, he's like, yeah, I already did that. And when he says I did this, it's like, I already did that. So it's like we're sparring buddies when it comes to implementation of AI, which is fun. And I think that's where we really connect on those type of things. And we know, we check in once in a while, see what's going on with the world. When he comes up with something, he throws it across. When I come up with something, I throw it across. And I think it's just nice to have somebody to talk to, and then on top of that, use the skill set to create this type of tool that's really adding value to us, and hopefully, the supply chain and the entire electronics industry as well.
Yeah.
So long story short, is adoption slow for this? Yes. And I think everybody sees the value that it can add. They just don't know how to implement it, because the tools that show up today are not going to be there tomorrow. So, you decide as a company to implement some type of AI automation tool, and boom, it's like obsolete, and you don't know what to do anymore. So,
Yeah.
or one does not know what to do anymore.
I think too, there's sometimes a misunderstanding about where AI's current strengths really lie, which, as you're both sort of utilizing it, is with data. It's great at that. And so if the headlines or pop culture is full of AI slop, which is a real thing because AI is not great yet at creativity, the conversation skews, because then what we're focusing on isn't the right thing. I read somewhere that the person who came up with the moniker artificial intelligence wishes he had just called it data sets, which is a lot less sexy, but is what he had in mind. It's just the way data is being managed. What do you think is, to put you on the spot a little bit, both of you, Everett, where are we headed? I want to say a year from now, but that's light years. 6 months from now, where do you see SnapChip, where do you see kind of as Gen AI is evolving, even as sort of Jay has alluded to, these workflow processes, it's going to start talking to all kinds of other pieces of technology that we use all the time. What are you excited about in the next 6 months or so?
Yeah, good question. I think there's a lag between what's possible and what will happen, and that's probably the most challenging thing about answering your question. If you're to talk about what's possible, that's very different from what's actually being adopted. So like even if you look at right now, what's possible, just using ChatGPT, just paying your $20 a month or even free, you can do incredible things with ChatGPT. You can figure out how to do something. You can memorialize that in an instruction, and now you've got what's called a custom GPT that can just do that thing over and over again, right? So the first thing people need to learn how to do is prompt with and understand what's possible, and then understand how to memorialize it in custom GPT, and then learn how to do what's called an action, where you are bringing external APIs into your custom GPT, and then a whole nother world opens up, right? That's right now. That's 6 months ago. That I don't even know if you remember, Jay, exactly when those came out, but it's at least 6 months ago, and no one knows how to do that. No one knows how to do that.
Yeah. I know Claude launched MCPs, which is supposed to be APIs for LLMs, and
yeah, MCPs
it's just getting started.
Yeah, and MCPs are the backbone of what are called connectors that OpenAI just introduced in ChatGPT, which is a whole nother window. They also introduced, I don't even know what they're calling it, but a buying function. So I think they first did it with Etsy. I haven't played with it yet. I've just read about it. But you can now go search for, I want a grandpa t-shirt. I just had a baby t-shirt. Find it on Etsy and buy it inside of ChatGPT. And so that's what I was talking about, where you're going, that's the first glimpse into this evolution from a single prompt interface as a way to find out how to do something, and now how to do something. And so that's one example. The other, I think Jay alluded to, they've introduced a function in ChatGPT for your $20 a month. I'm not sure you need to pay the $20, called agents. And the agent can actually go execute things on your system, right? So again, it's that evolution from what do I want to know to what do I want to do, right? So Chris, that's what I'm excited about, right? Are how, what can we do with these things that are possible? Now, it's a little bit different question though. What are people really, what's the adoption rate, right? What are, what can we market to people? What can we sell to people, right? And that seems to have, I don't know, Jay, what would you say? 18-month lag? I don't know. You know what I mean? What people actually use right now. If you look at like the AI quote unquote tools that are being offered in our industry, at least on the procurement side, not a one of them actually uses AI. They maybe do things to ingest documents, they read PDFs, that kind of thing. Not a one of them actually has what I would call an AI interface to them. So
yeah,
I don't know, Chris. That's what I'm excited about.
One thing is that I don't think that I don't know how far behind people are, but I do know that if you don't start, if you don't start, the gap is going to become exponentially larger.
Yep.
Because of the rate of adoption. So like if you're a front runner and an early adopter, you are going to get rewarded and get ahead versus the guy who waited 2 months, let's just say 2 months, to implement something. So I think it's I think it's a fun time definitely to be in AI and playing with it. Unfortunately, I've been able to get the organization has given me the resources and the freedom to start playing with it, which is fun. And I'm learning a lot as well.
Yeah.
And luckily we have people who we surround ourselves with, like Everett, who can help us push the boundaries and hopefully, do some good in our industry in general.
Yeah, yeah. I heard a smart guy. I can't remember which one of these smart AI guys was talking about. It's a remarkable time for people who have agency. Was the term he used. So
Correct.
for people who are the figure it out types, who are I can figure that out. I will go do that. It is an unbelievable time for people who are willing to go figure things out, right?
No, I think it is, not only the figure out, but it is a great time for the desperate. Like I feel
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
when you are a small business owner, like, ourselves, and you don't have the resources,
yeah,
for $20 a month, like,
It's a shift in thinking that as you're kind of pointing out, Jay, the three of us as kind of early adopters, that mindset, that curiosity that's just inherent, that's just native, that we don't even necessarily, that we kind of take for granted, really works to our advantage because we're fearless in checking things out, and we're not afraid we're going to break something, and we're not worried that we're putting it in wrong. We're excited to learn what happens if I do, and I think that's all very interesting, and I think what you both are doing with this is really interesting in your particular wheelhouses for sure. Jay mentioned bombsense.com. That is it, BOM Sense, bill of materials, sense.com. Everett is at snapchip.ai. Guys, come back in like 6 months and let's see where we landed. Let's see how it's going. Let's see how AI is taking over the world and where our places are in it. But Everett, thanks so much for joining us today. It's been a great conversation. Looking forward to knowing more about you and your journey with SnapChip and how it goes. And Jay, as always, great to be with you. Thank you.
thanks.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Jay.
Thanks for joining us, and a special thanks to our subscribers and followers. Consider becoming one today wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. Hardware is Forever is designed, tested, engineered, and built by the manufacturing experts at Amtech. Learn more and let us help you envision your next project with a free Design for Manufacturing assessment at buildamtech.com/DFM.